Yes, so anybody that wants to vote is going to have to be registered, and they're going to need some sort of photo ID. It's very easy. There's several methods you can use to register to vote. You can go to a local BOE and fill out a form. If you're an existing North Carolina DMV customer, you can use an online portal. You can print the form off the internet and mail it in as well. There's a citizenship question because everyone will have to be a U.S. citizen to participate. You verify that you're a citizen. You provide your date of birth, your name, a residential address, a mailing address if it's different. You can choose race, gender, party if you'd like. If you don't choose a party, you'll be entered as an unaffiliated. You'll have to sign verifying that the information provided was accurate, and you'll have to place a North Carolina driver's license number if you have one, a social if you have one, and if you have neither of those, there's a box where you have to select that you do not have either one. So you check the box that says you don't have one and you're okay. Currently, if you do not provide one or do not check the box, we will send a follow-up to try to get it from you until we confirm that you actually don't have it. And all those people are still subject to the same mail verification that anyone else would be. And they will be flagged as having to provide an ID when they go to the poll eventually. In our poll book, it'll be marked. So currently, when you register to vote for the first time or make any changes, we will send a verification card. If it doesn't come back to our office as undeliverable from the Postal Service, it's processed regularly. If it does come back, we'll send you an additional one. If that one comes back, if you're a new voter, you'll be denied. Otherwise, your voting status can be changed. One difference now with new legislation for same-day registrations, previously they would be subject to the same mail verification, 2 attempts at failure. But now moving forward, anybody that registers at an early voting site will have 1 mail verification, and if it fails that attempt, then that would be denied. So you can register same day from the first day we start until the Saturday before the election. You'll go in, you'll complete the registration form that you would have completed anyway. You'll have to provide photo ID, and then you will need some sort of document verifying your residential address. That can be a bank statement, utility bill, government-issued paycheck. It just needs to be current, and by current we mean within the last 90 days. So if you do that, like I said, naturally you'll have to have some document verifying the address, and then it will then undergo the mailing process. So naturally, a person can't maintain 4 residencies, and it would be unlikely they would have 4 documents and 4 separate names. So that kind of prevents that from happening.
So this goes into a centralized database, is what you're telling me?
Correct. So we have the centralized database maintained by the state board, and anyone who registers at any county in the state, if there is reason to believe they're registered somewhere else, the state board notifies that county, hey, this voter may be in our county now, take a look at this, you might need to remove them from yours. You are. So coming up in March, if you are registered with either of the parties, Democrat, Republican, you have to vote in that primary. If you're unaffiliated, you'll be offered a choice. The choice doesn't change your voter registration. However, if there is a second primary, you will be bound to the party you voted in the first primary. So there is no purging of voters. There is a uniform list maintenance procedure outlined in the general statutes. So currently, we conduct, it's called biennial list maintenance. So we're in 2024, it happens in the odd numbered years. So say next January of 2025, if you sat out the 2024 and 2022 election, you will receive a card because we've had no contact. That means you haven't submitted any documents, absentee requests, updates to your registration. Most importantly, you haven't voted. That's 2 federal election cycles. That would then move you into inactivity. People will also come off the rolls in 2025. Those people have not had any contact for 4 cycles. So we would have let them know in 2021, hey, now you're going to move in inactive if you don't respond. And so then they would have sat out 2022. And if they sit out 2024, then they are due to come off the rolls because it will have been 8 years of no contact with that person. So those types of things we consider list maintenance as well. They're not as, I guess, prevalent because obviously if we're moving inactive voters, there's a lot. But on the deceased and felons and people that move, it's less frequently. So with the deceased, there's several ways you can notify us that someone has passed away. If you're a near relative, of course, there's a deceased voter form pretty simple. A lot of the correspondence we send out to the voters has a spot. If you receive that letter, you can list at the bottom, hey, they passed away on this day, here's how I'm related to them, send it back. And then we get information from Register of Deeds like death certificates, and we also get information from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services as well. So that's how the deceased are handled. The out-of-counties you mentioned, with the state maintaining the database, there's so many reports that will speak to, hey, this person may match, this person definitely matches, and that's research that's done upstairs. So if someone registers in another county and uses the exact same identifying information on that form, same ID, same social, it's assumed it's the same person. So we're notified, bi-weekly pretty much. That's when we run them. And then they're then removed. And if they register and they have the same name and maybe the same ID, they're on a possible list, which requires a little bit more research. Sometimes that requires us to contact other counties, and we'll pull their documents to see if we can match the signatures. So like if that's the very last thing that we make the judgment call on, then that's what we'll do. And then felons are a little bit different as well. There's federal felon reports. The North Carolina, I guess it's Department of Adult Corrections now, maintains a list of felons, and it's the same process. If we get somebody that's been convicted of a felony, we send them a letter, say, hey, here's what we've been told, you have 30 days to dispute this. If they do not respond, they come off. If they do respond, then we can let the board know, and then they'll go from there. As long as you take necessary steps, the first step is filling out that registration form. We get a lot of questions from time to time. How do I know I'm registered? The North Carolina State Board maintains the public, facing portal. All that information is public record. You can key in your name. It will tell you where you were most recently registered or where we have you most recently registered. If you notice it in the current address, then you'll know to take the steps. On the other side of that, if you have completed the registration form after you moved, it will be reflected on that end, and you also receive the voter verification card, assuming your information was entered correctly. So the provisional ballots are issued when there's a question surrounding the voter's eligibility. In the scenario you outlined a second ago, if you moved 6 months ago and you didn't update your voter registration, then we're not going to have you on our rolls. If you're not on the rolls, you're not going to be able to participate in the usual method, which is why you get the provisional. And the provisional will come back to the office, and the team upstairs will research everything you can think of as far as the main one we look at is, have they attempted to register? Do we have some sort of documentation? Even if it was incomplete. If we see that you tried to register and you didn't sign it, or so, we can use the provisional to satisfy that deficiency. So that's the first step. If we go through the hurdles and the hoops and we see that you've never contacted the BOE, you haven't been to the DMV, no attempt to register, then that's a different story. But as long as you've made some contact with us, or like you said, maybe you went to the wrong precinct, we couldn't verify that you hadn't voted in the old one. We'll take the provisional. Once we realize you didn't vote at the old one, you're good to go. We'll update the address on the back end. And all those eventually get presented to the board for approval at Canvas. Right, so now we probably on a monthly basis run about 80% digital, whereas maybe even a decade ago that wasn't the case. At the deadline you get piles and piles of mail that had to be scanned, typed, reviewed, and then eventually a card would be mailed. Now when it comes in digitally via either the actual online registration portal or through the DMV, as they scan the digital copy over to us, the data comes in keyed already. So you're really just doing the auditing process of making sure that it's keyed in correctly and there's no mistakes, and then it'll get sent out. So it really cuts out a lot of the work as far as voluminous, busy work. So that's been a big help for us and I guess every county in the state. I've always said just for anybody to succeed at any part of this office, they have to be flexible and adaptable. The landscape is always changing. Legislation is always getting altered, amended, new legislation that changes the rules. Staying on top of that is one challenge for our own employees, but then everyone else that's participating in the process, like when photo ID came more recently, there's signage that has to go out, there's changes to forms that have to happen, and people that don't participate in every election, they might be coming out for the presidential and it could be the first time they voted in several years, and it will look a little different than it did the first time or the last time. So I think that's the biggest challenge is keeping up to date on the changes and making sure everyone is aware of them, because we're in an age of such disinformation and misinformation. It's tough to be sure people really know the truth.